Good morning. So, I was thinking about last week and what Michelle brought in the message about being a servant, and what comes with that is burnout and not taking rest. So, I would like to talk today about the rhythm of rest. Everyone has a deep longing to find rest. We all search for places where we can finally be at peace and be free to be ourselves. God has designed us to find true rest only in Himself, and we will be restless until we find ourselves in Him. This message will share God's design for rest, His provision of the Sabbath, and the fulfillment of rest in Christ. So, we're living in a time, right? We go. We move fast. We like to keep our motor going. Right? Anyone ever own a Toyota Camry? Those, they go forever, right? But I did some research, and about 10 years ago, Toyota did a massive recall on them because the accelerator was getting stuck. And can you imagine being on 93, coming up to the Hooksett tolls, where it splits, and your accelerator is stuck? Yeah. You know, I would probably be repeating the Psalm, 23rd Psalm. Yeah. But some of us live that way. Some of us live with our accelerator on lock. We just keep going and think this is normal. But that's not what God intended for us. He wanted us to live in a rhythm. There is an incredible book by a pastor named Lance Witt. He wrote this book called Replenish. If we slow down at all, we have this low-grade nagging guilt that we are not being productive. We can't relax, we can't sit still, but we can't stop. We are not sure how to stop the treadmill. The key to unlocking a sane pace is found in the word rhythm. So, my Aunt June lives near a casino. They go all the time. My Uncle Mikey, he works in the back with the chips. And we were talking about it out in Colorado and how there's no sense of rhythm in a casino. I'm assuming none of you have experienced a casino, right? Yeah, right. But they keep it that way so people don't realize what time it is or how much time they've spent sitting there. They do it for a purpose, right? But we don't live in a casino. We live in a universe that flows with rhythm. So our lives must flow that rhythm. So we're going to be talking about our God that created us to have lives of rhythm, and one of the rhythms we are supposed to have is the rhythm of rest. The rhythm of rest, it isn't just a week we take once a year, or if we're lucky, twice a year. It's supposed to be the rhythm of our lives. But the mantra that most of mankind is just lived in is the American way, is more, faster, build. And that is where so many of us are living our lives. It's almost impossible to put work down. So how many of you have one of these in your pocket? Oh, great. So on average, statistics say we touch our phones every 10 to 17 seconds. Mine tells me about my appointments for the day, that I need water, how much exercise movement I've had, how much screen time I've had. Reminds me to call Ray at 8 p.m. every night when I'm out. I'm attached to that, I thought I left it yesterday, and I was like, oh man, I'm like 15 minutes out, I don't have my phone, and then I found it. I had a panic attack. That's not okay. It shouldn't be like that. Now, I know I have been guilty of not always being responsible and doing this, so I am amazed when I'm driving down 93 and I see someone holding the steering wheel with two hands. That's amazing to me. There are so many other things we could be doing. We could be emailing, we could be texting, we could be putting our makeup on, or drinking coffee, or watching Netflix. Just kidding. Although a good friend of mine always says there's a little bit of truth in just kidding.
Have you watched Netflix while driving, Joy?
I am not going to answer that because we are recording. I can't imagine. We're just going to move on. I can't imagine being a parent. You live 24/7 for your kids, and I'm going to assume your only moment is in the bathroom. I've never experienced this because I don't have kids, but I'm thinking you're in there praying that they don't come knocking on the door. And, you know, a 2-year-old is a kind of like having a blender, but you don't have a top for it. I thought that was pretty hilarious. And from what I know from my friends who are parents, that's pretty accurate. So, you know, you just pray that, you know, you get this moment, right? Because they have this overwhelming pace parents have to keep up with. And don't forget about all the involvement in different ministries and helping this one and helping that one. And don't forget to live winsome, spirit-filled life. It gets exhausting, doesn't it? And we just keep going and going. Do you ever just wake up and say, I need a break? Is this really what God intended? A.J. Swoboda, who's a writer and pastor from Oregon, wrote, our hyperactivity has produced bodies that are ragged, our spirits thirst. We have this inability to sit and just be as we drown ourselves in a 24/7 life. We seem to be able to do anything but quench our thirst for the life of God. We become perhaps emotionally exhausted, psychologically overworked, and spiritually malnourished. In Japanese culture, put this in for you, has given this exhaustion a term. It's actually a medical term over there called karoshi. It's a medical term literally meaning overworked death. I don't know if this speaks to anyone, but it certainly speaks to me. I tend to be the person that takes one of those strength finders or personality tests, and it says, you like to go, you like to do more, and you like to achieve, and you like to learn, and you're a helper, and you help everybody. And for some of us, it's something God has put in us, right? That driven purpose that Michelle talked about last week. It's finding that balance. And for some of us, it's something God put in us, and we simply can't turn it off. We are stuck in that accelerator position. For some of us, it becomes a badge of honor. I'm busy. I matter. I'm going to prove to you my importance in the economy of God, so we post it, we tweet it, we put it on Facebook. And we do it in such a way that's going to show you that I matter about how busy I am. I wager not much, but maybe a Happy Meal, that's about all I can afford right now, that if you ask 10 people this week, how are you? 9 of them will say, oh man, I'm just busy. It's nonstop at work. It's just go, go, go. I know I've answered that way. And how have you answered the question, how are you? I'm wondering if you've ever had a conversation with someone and asked them how they're doing, and they respond, not much is going on. Life is relaxed. I'm enjoying a real cadence of rhythm and rest. I'm just enjoying the God that created me. I often take walks on the trail in Plymouth, and I contemplate the water as it weaves around trees and rocks, there to create a waterfall. This is a regular thing I do. Unfortunately, that's not the answers we hear, right? That's not what we do. We go and we go. And for some of us, we are at the point some writers call burnout. We are exhausted. We are wondering, can we make it one more day? Thomas Merton, a devotional writer, put it this way: to allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone and everything, is to succumb to the violence of our times. To want to go and be everything to everyone is to come to the violence of our times. I know I run into that. I want to be everything for everyone. And I forget to take a rest for me. So we're going to take a moment to talk about God's wisdom about the Sabbath. Derek Thompson, writer of an Atlantic Monthly, wrote, now this is just a small little paper in Atlanta, right? He addressed this problem of workism, titled simply this: Workism is making Americans miserable. He writes, the decline of traditional faith has coincided with an explosion of atheism. Now people worship beauty. Some people worship political identities. And others worship their children. Everyone worships something. Workism is among the most potent of the new religion competing for congregants. What is workism, you ask? It is probably not a word you've ever used. This is what he says. It is a belief that work not only is necessary to economic production, but it is also the centerpiece of one's identity and life's purpose. And the belief that any policy to promote human welfare must always encourage more work. The American dream for more than over a century has made the U.S. obsessed with material success and the exhaustive strive to earn it. We have created this idea that the meaning of life should be found in our work, but our desks never meant to be our altars. That didn't come from any of the 66 books in the Bible. Now that's a guy who wrote an article in Atlantic Monthly that preaches, right? More hours, more stuff, more guilt. Go, 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 to see the needle moving in the right direction. This is the world that many of us are living, and the shocker of it all is that God of the Bible did not have this in mind. I know I have been guilty of this. I will stress and stress and stress and stress and stress and stress and stress, trying to get everything done and please everyone and help everyone. When if I just took a moment and stood back, I'd realize I didn't have to. It would be okay. So we have the absolute opportunity to talk to you about this gift from the old school church word, Sabbath. And it's a gift for many of us we have never opened. It is a gift for many of us, if we are honest, refuse to open it because we are scared of rest. I am scared of rest. I don't like stopping. If we rest, we may lose our corner on the market if we were in business, right? If we were entrepreneurs. If we rest, we might realize we might not get ahead as we, quote, want to be. Or we might not gain the knowledge that we're seeking if we don't. If we don't rest, we can just keep on going. The word Sabbath literally is an ancient practice, ancient Judaism. They practiced weekly all of life, revolved around the Sabbath. It begins at 6 p.m. on Friday nights and ends 6 p.m. Saturdays. Can you imagine taking a real rest for 24 hours in your life? Just stopping. I know this is going to be a stretch for some of us. I know it is for me. We have to practice this ongoing rhythm every week. Can you imagine practice what the people of God have been commanded to do for centuries? Think, well, I'm just going to slow down, or I'm not going to jump this pace of life that are crushing some of us. We're just going to slow it down a little bit. We can't really rest. We put that push back. The ancient would practice at 6 p.m. They would prepare special bread and give thanks for, the days and the labor. And they would sit in a room and they would enjoy each other, really enjoy each other. Nowadays, we sit in a room with our phones in our hands. Yeah, life is good. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, whatever you need. We don't look up. They actually look at each other in the eye and they eat bread together. Probably some of you might be laughing because I do not rest well. I don't rest well. I think I may have to come out of I think I came out of my mom's room with a sense of restlessness. I just can't do it. Resting is not me. I like to go. I like to achieve. I like to move. So I'm not talking as a person who has put this into practice. Yet. I'm not an expert in this. This is a practice for me that has to be practiced. I'm not speaking as a professional by any means. So I'm hoping at this point you guys are thinking, so how do we actually do this? Right? There is a simple definition that I love of what the Sabbath means. Slow down enough to be able to receive. That's it. Slow down enough to be able to receive. There is an irregular cadence in our lives, and we can make it regular if we just slow down. If we rest. If we look at the first book of Genesis, we see so many things in the book of Genesis. If we really stop and read the Bible accurately and think of the context Moses wrote the book of Genesis. He wrote it to people who were coming out of Egypt of 400 years of slavery. And he wanted them to know who God is and who they are. That's the big thing of Genesis. It really is, I want you to know who God is, and I want you to know who you are. Since we've read the creation of the account, that was a few months ago actually when we did the creation, but we get the gist of the creation, right? He created every day for 6 days. But he wanted to remind his people of this and thrust of it. This is who God is, and this is who you are. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 2 through 4, by the seventh day, God had finished his work. On the seventh day, he restored from all his work. God blessed the seventh day. He made it holy, because on that day, he restored from his work all the creating God had done. Isn't it amazing that God, who never gets tired, the God who is fountain of energy, chose rest? Now, I don't know about you, but some of us can work 108 hours and just keep the machine going, built with God, right? A God of rest is, if we're honest, we're scared of. We're intimidated by that. Many of us, we just kind of feel like we're more comfortable. Keep moving. Right? That's where I am. I feel more comfortable moving. And activity and going, and yet we see Moses tell people of God, God is a God of rest. It got so bad on the people of Israel because they were just like us. They didn't really trust that rest was supposed to be a part of the program. So we got to remind them, remind us, Moses again, and we get a reminder from Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 5, 12 through 15, that this is where we read, and so many of us need to hear this. No working on the Sabbath. Keep it holy, just as God, your God, commanded you. Work 6 days, doing everything you have to do. But the seventh day is a Sabbath, a rest day. No work. Not you, your son, your daughter, your servant, your maid, your ox, your donkey, or any of your animals, and not even the foreigner visiting your town. That way, your servants and maids will get the same rest as you. Don't ever forget that you were slaves in Egypt, and God, your God, got you out of there in a powerful show of strength. That's why God, your God, commands you to observe the day of the Sabbath rest. It doesn't sound like an option to me, right? It's not like, well, if you choose to, you can do it. No, it was a command. I know you strength finders, keepers, and leaders, and you know a type people. I know we can make it a long way. We can go. So we got to this week, and you got to, your systems, you got to your realizations, like you got your justifications of why, right? But it's going to catch up to us. It's going to catch up to us. It's going to catch up to me. It's going to catch up to you. It's going to form certain patterns of behavior, certain mindsets. This is going to make your relationships a mess. It's going to eventually catch up to your body. And for us, cost of not observing God is far higher than saying yes to the gift God has for us. Mark Buchanan, he's another great writer, in his book, The Rest of God, says to refuse Sabbath is in effect spurn the gift of freedom. It is to resume willingly where we once cried out for God to deliver us from its choosing what we once shunned. Slaves don't rest. They can't rest. By definition, they don't have the freedom to rest. Rest, it turns out, is a condition of liberty. Sabbath is our refusal to go back to Egypt. So, what I want to do in our brief time is paint a picture of 6 pictures of what I believe the Sabbath is. Number 1, a reminder of the big story. As Rick Warren would say, as the big story is not you or me. The big story is God. It's His story. Sabbath is the reminder that in the scope of the cosmos, our lives are incredibly tiny. Now that for us sometimes, you're like, I don't like that. I like to think that I'm super important. Sabbath reminder that I am not the one spinning the world on my finger. That is God, right? It's not all about me. That He is the big deal, that His story is going to outlast 72 years, 80 years, 40 years, 35 years, 100 years. How many years God gives you here on this planet, this tiny planet in the cosmos? He is the big story. And we need regular rhythms to just be reminded of the greatness of God. Right? Because we can go and go and go and forget how amazing God is. We need to come to church on Sunday morning. Yes, we need to worship, but we need more than that. We need substantial rhythm where we go. God, this world is all about you. If we don't have that, we're going to forget, we're going to lose perspective. I will lose perspective. I will flip out and freak out like some of you when things don't go my way. Maybe a couple of you have witnessed this in my office. I have done this because I thought things were supposed to go my way. It's like, wow, it's really not. It's supposed to go His way. I just need Sabbath so that I would consent to the way of God. So we need Sabbath to be reminded of the big story. Second thing, we need Sabbath because Sabbath is a day to stop. That's a word that Americans don't like. Isn't like, yeah, I just like to admit that I had limits. How many of you walk around like, yeah, I'm limited, I can't do this, I have a lot of limits. We don't, right? And we definitely don't put it on Facebook. We don't talk about our limits. It's not, I'm not going to share that I tried cooking and I couldn't get the dough to rise. I'm not going to put that on there, that I failed. I'm not going to put on there that my limits, I'm not a plumber. I'm not going to put on there that I tried fixing the plumbing. I'm not going to boast that, right? We don't broadcast to the world that, we tried, we failed, and that's that. We're not going to do that. We get awakened to the reality that we're just very limited. So Sabbath is a sign where we truly stop the world. In Genesis 2, is Shabbat. The word is Shabbat. It literally means to cease. It means to be complete, not within ourselves, but when Christ is in us. So Sabbath, both this mindset and this moment, Sabbath is a day to stop. The third thing I think Sabbath is a day where there's no to-do list. I know I just stepped on some toes right there. I stepped on mine. I have a to-do list every day. But people are like, how can I live without my to-do list? It keeps me organized, it keeps me going, it keeps me doing the next thing. Don't worry. It's gonna be okay. But you're already thinking, man, I gotta go to Walmart, I gotta go to BJ's after this, I gotta go, do this, and this, right? And that you're really hoping that I'll end this sermon soon and, move on and we can get out of here. But it's a day with no to-do list. It's just a day. And for many of us, it's like driving a car with no steering wheel. It's like what I do, how I would possibly live without a to-do list. I sit down every morning at work and make my to-do list. I know that's terrifying to most of us. We would rather sleep the whole day away instead of waking up and thinking, I'm not making a to-do list today. It terrifies some of us. What do? Embrace the oddness, right? Do it weekly, and eventually you'll figure it out right. John Mark Comer, his book Garden City, says this: and Sabbath is a day where I don't accomplish anything and I don't feel guilty. I'm going to read that again. I don't accomplish anything and I don't feel guilty. Because that's what happens when I do nothing, I feel the guilt. It's a day where I don't have to get more today. It's a day where I enjoy what I have. That means I'm not scrolling TikTok. And on that day, it means no to-do list, no accomplishment, no phone, no tech, no shopping, literally a week recalibration. Think of Sabbath like a holy or like a weekly holiday. We're all thinking, no, it's too hard. But we can, if we practice. I'm going to start practicing. I know as Americans, we tend to get all excited about Thanksgiving Day, right? We love watching the Patriots beat anyone. But there's also this other thing we do. Like we get together and we eat turkeys and they're like 35 pounds and we don't know how they get that big and we don't really want to ask how they get that big because I don't think they're supposed to. But, we get them, we prepare them, and we just get together as family and we stuff ourselves. And if you're old enough, around 4 p.m., you can listen to the football announcer and you're just lying there like it's just this day where you basically have no agenda. And we're like, that's the one day where we're going to have no to-do list. And I'm sure some of you are thinking, man, obviously you've never prepared a Thanksgiving meal. You're like, you're right. I'm not so... That being said, for some of us, it's our way. But the reality is the picture of what the Sabbath should be. Right? That Thanksgiving Day when we just gather, we stuff ourselves, and we just sit and be. Just this weekly rhythm. I know many of us who think, I will rest when I take a week's vacation. And God's like, no, you're not able to really sustain that. I want a weekly day turn in your agenda where you turn in your iPad. Some of the old school people may be turning in their Palm Pilot or weekly paper planner or whatever you did, and you said, God, this is your day. I don't know what you have for me, but I know you wanted to enjoy people around me. I know you want me to celebrate. I know you want me to have time of reflection. This is your day. For some of us, that sounds paralyzing, and the truth is, Number 4, Sabbath is a declaration of freedom. It's a declaration we don't ultimately belong to all the voices in our culture, all the voices within, but we belong to the Lord. Deuteronomy 5, remember that you were. That's past tense. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day, because, friends, you are now free. You're free from the constant push in our culture and in our world to achieve and to scale and add more and say yes to everything. You're free from that. Tim Keller wrote an excellent article, put it this way. He says, the Sabbath day is a reenactment of emancipation from slavery. It reminds us how God delivered his people from a condition in which they were not human beings, but simply units of capacity in Pharaoh's brick production system. Anyone who cannot obey God's command to observe the Sabbath is a slave, even a self-imposed one. Sabbath is therefore a declaration of our freedom. It means you are not a slave to our culture's expectations. You know, we're not a slave. We don't have to be a slave to our family, our school demands, our work demands, not even to our own insecurities. Sabbath is a declaration where we declare enough activity, enough stuff, enough status. It's a day where I say I don't have to earn my Father's love. It's a day where I say I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to produce perfect kids. I don't have to sign my kids up for every activity, right? Because I watch a lot of TV and I see these families on the TV shows and they're, the reality shows where the parents are signing up kids for everything, and we don't have to do that, right? We don't have to sign the kids up every activity. I have this weekly reminder that in Jesus I am free and I am enough, and that is not the message that our culture screams to any one of us. The message is you are never enough. So your life on this tiny little dot called Earth is your chance to prove that perhaps you are enough. That you and I need this reminder, only in Jesus are we truly enough. And that's why, number 5, Sabbath is truly an act of trust. It takes trust to take a break. It takes trust to stop producing. To practice Sabbath is this disciplined and faithful way to remember that you and I are not the ones who keep our world running. That God is actually doing work when we are not doing it. Right? He's constantly going. Number 6, and finally, Sabbath is a personal invitation from Jesus. Matthew 11, check this out as a wild invitation from Jesus. He says to us, are you tired, or you wore out, or you burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you recover life. I'll show you how to take a rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn from the unforced rhythm of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitted on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live lightly, clear to live freely and lightly. It is about asking this fundamental question: how do we learn to live freely and lightly in these unforced rhythms of grace? And doing life with Jesus, how do we put this into practice? Right? That's what we're all thinking. And, I don't know what you're thinking, actually. Probably just like, are we done yet? But you may be thinking, like, I sure hope to God he's about done. And guess what? I am so close. Good thing. But you may also be thinking, like, how in the world does he envision that we would ever put this into practice? Right? Do you know anything about my life? Like, I wake up at 5 a.m., some mornings 3 a.m., I go to the gym, I go to my friend's house, I shower, I then go to work, and then I work all day, and then, you know, I DoorDash sometimes, so I work again, and then, you know, I head home eventually at 9 o'clock, and, you know, when I get home, I still have stuff to do, like prepare for the next day, and, you know, at 8 o'clock I check on Ray, and, you know, I don't wind down for a while. And then I just think, oh, I gotta do it again and again and again and again and again, and every day it's just this constant, you know, that if you know anything about me, I don't know everything about you. But one thing I know about you is there's still ways that we can put this into practice. And I know you're thinking, well, even on my day off, my 3 kids, they each have 7 soccer games on that day off, so like I'm an Uber driver in my part-time to my family, so you're thinking, how do I ever do this, like get real, and how do I do this? How do I stop for a moment and just be? Because there's always something I can fill with space and time, right? You know, schoolwork, things around the house that I've ignored, all these things that I could fill in this space, but I just have to take that moment. So what I'm gonna do, since we're all thinking of the question, I'm gonna talk, how do we put this into practice? Because at some point we have to make this practice very personal, right? We have to work on that. And when I say we, I include me, very much so. We don't wanna just talk conceptually about practicing the Sabbath. I'm gonna get into your world for just a minute and say, here are some ways you can put this practice and make it personal, because if we don't put this into practice, maybe you've heard a good message today, maybe you didn't, maybe you came in and you enjoyed your time here, but if we don't put it into practice, this time of us gathering, I would say, has been a waste. I want you to put this into practice, not because the God of the scriptures needs anything from us, but because he has so much for us. So how do we make this practice personal? The good news, right, friend, is it has to be personal. I love it. The Apostle Paul in Corinthians 2, verse 16 says, he says, don't let anybody pass judgment on you regarding the way you observe the Sabbath. What I take from that is this invitation that we're not forced into doing what the person besides us is doing and how they observe the Sabbath. We're invited to say, how am I going to put this principle, this practice, this command from Deuteronomy 5 into practice in my life? How am I going to say, okay, Jesus, you know my schedule, you know what we're up against, you know all the things that I've got to do, but I know I want to be obedient in this area, because otherwise I will burn out. Or maybe I'm here today, and if I'm ever be honest, we may already be burned out, right? I know there was a point at work I got burned out, and I had to step back. You know, but how do we really restore rhythm and rest into our lives? We have 3 things that I think we repeatedly need to do. So the 3 things. We will never have formation to become like Jesus, right? You know this when you work out, right? Like if you repeatedly do something, generally you can tell that you're working out. But without repetition, there's no formation, right? If I only go to the gym once a month instead of twice a week, I'm not going to see any results, you know? But I've seen changes because I repeatedly are doing it. You can desire to have rest, but unless you decide to choose to rest, you won't have rest. That goes for you, it goes for me. So what are the things that we can do? The first thing is we can get away, right? Now, you know, I know all of us are thinking, oh, Priceline, we can go online, get a bundle, we can go on this long trip, we can take a cruise, we can see these different countries. That doesn't mean you just have to go on more vacations. All right? Getting away, when I say that, I mean get away from the machines in our lives, the voices in our lives. And you're thinking, sweet, I'll take a day off. Facebook. I'll just be on Instagram instead. No, I mean literally get away from that stuff, right? Get away from the noise, get away from the accessibility. Technology allows us, thankfully, to work from anywhere. But now the problem is that we work from everywhere. I was off on Friday, and I was still answering emails. I may or may not have been driving, but I was, answering emails, and I didn't have to because it was my day off. I couldn't even stop for a moment. It's a great tool, but we need disciplined effort I need to get away. I need a rhythm in my life, repeatedly, weekly, of substantial time away. Second thing is, I need to get quiet. We don't live in a world of quiet. We live in a world of chatter, of noise, of 24/7 cable news. Like this is our world. We know when something happens across the globe instantly. We know that, but we need to choose quiet. I would encourage you to head to Walmart or BJ's, and they're very inexpensive. There, pick up a notebook and pen, or even a number 2 pencil if you would prefer, and just begin a weekly rhythm of journaling. I tell you, it has changed so much just by journaling. Now, don't feel the pressure like you need to become a famous author whose journals have become books. That's not what we're looking for. You just don't have to be, but use them as a tool to just get quiet. Sometimes we need these tools. We are like, Lord, here's really what I'm dealing with. Write out your anxious thoughts. Write out your fears. Write out your concerns. We need to get away and we need to get quiet. But thirdly, which may not make sense to some of you, but we need to get together, right? And COVID took that away from us, but we're slowly coming back together. We need to get back together. When I'm talking about the Sabbath, I'm not talking about you and your lonesome just taking long walks along the trail and just going just Sabbathing and hovering above the dirt. There's other people, right? If we get together. I know Saturday morning when I have breakfast with 2 of my friends, that's the Sabbath for me. That grounds me, that gives me something. It's get together with people. This doesn't mean this is your Pinterest moment to put all things together and make it beautiful and set up the lights and have hors d'oeuvres. Although that would be amazing. But go to Walmart and just get a $10 bucket of chicken from the deli and invite people over y'all, we're eating chicken together tonight. It wouldn't be at my house because Ray doesn't like chicken, but we'd find something to eat and just be together, right? We're not going to put on a program. Paper plates are going to be on the list, and if you have napkins, that's even better, right? Because food can get messy. But if we just stop and get together and enjoy one another, it just has to be something and it doesn't have to be something that you post on your social feeds, right? Just enjoy slowing down together. Get away, get quiet, but get together, right? I will not become more like Jesus in isolation either, right? We need these practices. This is what God wants from us. He wants this for you. This need to be a regular, repeated, ongoing rhythm in our lives. We just get away, we get quiet, we allow all those voices to go away so that we can begin the process, those inner noises that are truly going on in our hearts and our minds. We can work through them with the Lord, right? But we also need to get together. and break bread together. Can you imagine putting this into practice on a regular cadence of rest? And when the world around us bumps into us, we're at peace. Not because we finally reached that destination, but because our bank account has finally reached the amount where we can go like, oh, I don't have to worry anymore, right? That's not it. I'm at peace. You know, that's the illusion, right, of money and stuff. Like, you'll never get to that position. We'll never have enough money where we feel, oh, we're comfortable, or we'll never get the stuff we want and be like, oh yeah, now I've got it, because there's always something more we want. But we want to get to the point where we can imagine that we just go and, you know what, and be with Jesus. I know him. I know he wants something from me, far more than he wants something, you know, I want something from him far more than he wants something from me. And the restlessness that I've carried around my whole life, I have found rest in the one who made me. And he's put my life in a place of rhythm. He's put my life in a place of rhythm to where I'm actually have a cadence in this regular ongoing practice of the Sabbath rest. It's still a practice though. It's still a practice. See, Sabbath ultimately is not just this idea, this practice. Sabbath is a person. Sabbath is Jesus. A writer once put it this way. He said in creation, God finished the work, and he said, it is finished, so God can rest. But on the cross, Jesus looked at the world around, and he said, it is finished, and now we can rest. Isn't that good? God looked at all that he had created. He says, I can rest. And in redemption, on the cross, Jesus said, it is finished. Now we can rest. What did Jesus say in Matthew 11? Come to me, all who are weary, all who are heavy laden, all who are burdened, and you can have rest. So find your rest. Find your Sabbath. We got one more song.